Hey guys, welcome to Rosie's Dessert Spot. In this episode I'll be teaching you how to make a tie-dye rainbow cake. To begin, I'm mixing all my dry ingredients in a bowl and combining all my wet ingredients into the other bowl. I've got the recipe in the description box below. And my camera didn't work when I recorded it mixing together, but once it does, you separate it into 6 different bowls and add all of your colours. I've used liquid colour, and for my last purple one I've used gel colour. No particular reason, I just didn't have purple on me at the time. Mix those all in and then spoon 1 tablespoon into your bowl. I've used a 5-inch bowl for this, sorry, a 5-inch cake tin. And you'll notice that my recipe is really runny. That's what you kind of want. You want to use a vanilla recipe or something white or pale, and that way it runs into itself. As you keep adding each tablespoon worth of cake batter, it sinks into itself and it creates these beautiful rings. So this is my favourite way of doing a rainbow cake. And as you go through the colours of the rainbow, just keep repeating, and you can tell there's those beautiful rings all around. Once you fill your bowl about 3/4 of the way up, you can stop. And this is just a different way of doing the tie-dye rainbow look. I've got all my colours in disposable piping bags, and I just kind of zigzag, kind of randomly pipe all the colours into the bowl, into the cake tin. And give it a tap just to take out any of those air bubbles that might be trapped in there. And bake those at 180 degrees for about 50 odd minutes. Next I'm going to make my cream cheese frosting. Now this frosting is going to go inside the cake and it's also going to coat the outside, so I always add butter when I'm doing that. Just gives it a much more stable, stronger frosting that goes on the outside, and it won't sink in on itself, and it's just a lot sturdier. Gradually add in your icing sugar. And because this is a rainbow cake, I'm also going to add in some sprinkles. Or hundreds and thousands if you're in Australia. Mix those through. And I'll show you how I cut my cakes. I usually score with a serrated knife along the outside, and making sure my cake is on a turntable. I slowly turn it, making sure to keep my knife as level as I can because I want to make a really level cake. So once you've marked the outside, start sawing away at your cake. I always make sure that my knife can be seen on the other side of the cake, that way it remains straight because it has the cake to help level it. There you are! How pretty is that? I use the same methods when I'm cutting my cake in half. And then do the same for your tie-dye cake. And you can see it does have a very distinct different look to the rings that we had before. It's also very pretty. Next I'm going to take my 8-inch cake board and I'm going to spread some of that frosting onto there. That'll hold the cake down on the board. And then just spread some over the top of that, try and make it as even as you can, maybe a centimetre's worth of frosting. I usually use a piping bag to do this, but I didn't have any on hand, so I had to use a spatula. But you'll see why I prefer the piping bag soon. And make sure that's centered. Press it down and continue with the other frosting. Now see, as you're working it, that top layer just starts shifting around and it kills me. That's why when you use a piping bag you won't have that problem, and you'll make sure that your cake is straight the whole way through. Make that layer nice and level and attach your 3rd cake layer, making sure it's nice and straight on there. Straighten that off again, and lastly apply your very last layer, which was the bottom of the cake, so you can tell the top is nice and flat. Once that's nice and straight, you can start taking away the excess along the edges. Just with a spatula, you don't need anything fancy. And then put that into the freezer for a good 15-20 minutes. That way when you frost the outside, the cake won't shift, it's all nice and set. I start with a huge dollop on the top and just work my way out to the outside of the cake, just across the edges. level off the top and just add in huge dollops along the outside, making sure that you're pressing in, that you're taking all those air pockets out of there. Bring that frosting right to the bottom as well. And then once you've covered the whole of the cake, just using a spatula, go over it once just to take off any excess. And to give it a real nice clean finish, I'm using my bench scraper, making sure it's angled at 90 degrees, and just rotate my cake board. You'll see that there are a lot of spaces that you can miss. Just go in with your frosting and then continue to take off the excess with your bench scraper. My problem areas always tend to be right at the top as well, so just cover all that up and go around it again. Once you're satisfied with how smooth the outside is of the cake, you can start removing any excess off the top. And I find that when I do this, it pulls the edges out a little bit. So I always go around the cake a second time just to make sure that that lip is raised again, and then just continue to remove it as you go. Very last step, I've put my bench scraper under really hot water and I very slowly go around my cake, and that just gives it a really clean, really smooth finish. It's a must. If you're creating cakes that aren't going to be covered in fondant particularly, you do not want to skip this step. I've got the rest of my frosting and I've coloured it all the colours of the rainbow, and I'm spooning 1 teaspoon each into a bag. Fitted with a star tip, I'm going to start making little shells across the bottom edge. And as I rotate my bag, you'll see the other colours that start to come through as well. So you'll keep rotating your bag and you'll get the full range of the rainbow colours. And this is a perfect cake, especially for a children's party. Do the same with the top, just along the edge. Just like so. And then to show you guys the inside. And there's your tie-dye rainbow cake. How pretty is that? Just give you guys a better look. And take out another slice. And you can see how beautiful that is. And that's how it's done. Thank you guys for watching. I do hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I will see you really soon.